World building is done with the intent of telling a story. Your story will have conflict. The weapons you choose will ultimately dictate how that conflict unfolds. In the background is a weapon I recently designed for my own world, so I thought now would be a fitting time to talk about fancy weapons and bringing them to life in your own world. I'll start with my own art, but if you just care for writing advice, start here, and if you only want to know more about how I made the art, start here. I got the main inspiration from some porcelain crockery. Blue and white is always a lovely combination, and they have these mesmerizing small transparent holes. Another reference was an old brass bonsai knife. It's used to scar and carve a tree, creating aesthetically pleasing imperfections. I like to think good weapon design makes a completely sane person want to use it, and I could definitely picture myself stabbing something with this dagger. As for practical design, this blade is meant to be a gift, hence more time was given to aesthetics over useful functionality. Now for writing and creating your own concept weapons. I was going to list all the points out as pros and cons, but honestly it's not black and white. Most advice is situational, and advice in the creative space is a lot like a tool. It all depends on how you use it. Echo chambers are the ultimate death of art. Creating art is essentially creating something completely new. Uniqueness cannot be achieved by completely following a list or a tutorial. Yes, they may help, but you have to take your own path. Too many channels treat their viewers like babies or sheep. Just give people the information and let them form their own opinions. Starting with genre, time period and technology is going to limit what weapons you have. Yes, there are always exceptions. Fantasy worlds have a bit more leeway with combat in general, but at an extremely basic level you can have no guns, some guns, and all guns. Starting with no guns, these are your classic medieval worlds, bows, swords, and the like. Think Lord of the Rings. The features that go along with this theme are combat has a sense of honor and glory. Most fights are one-on-one. It takes strength and skill to be victorious. Without proper experience, a sword is a useless lump of steel. Weapons are works of art. It's not uncommon to see beautifully ornate swords and armor sets in these time periods. Weapons were status symbols for wealth, achievement, and skill. Magic is overpowered in a world like this. Where most people are chucking sticks and stones, they have no chance against a mage that can rain hellfire down upon them. When people try to balance this, they just end up making their mage users seem pathetic and stupid. The amount of shows that use mages as glorified trebuchets and catapults is ridiculous. If all your wizards do is chuck fire and big rocks, I'm sorry to say, but your story doesn't need a mage. It needs a f***ing catapult. And lastly, combat in this genre is slow and heavy. To beat 10 people in a sword fight would be an extraordinary feat. Honestly, anything more than that, and it's no longer about skill, it's about stamina. Anyone who's been in an intense fist fight, after 5 minutes you're gasping for air. So hours upon hours of non-stop combat in full plate armor just isn't achievable for your average human. Next is some guns. This is when guns are newly adopted but not quite good enough to replace traditional weapons. Think Pirates of the Caribbean. This gives a good power balance. Introducing guns into your fantasy world provides fairness. Whether it be mythical beasts like dragons or birthrights of wizards, guns provide the common person a fighting chance. They can also be used to change the status quo. In Kung Fu Panda 2, the looming power of guns threatens to make Kung Fu obsolete. Without this, the only other option for conflict would be some villain better at Kung Fu. Not only industrial technology changing the world, but guns in specific, leaving skilled warriors destitute. Their once prized abilities are slowly becoming obsolete. And my personal favorite aspect for this weapon genre is ships. Before cannons, naval combat was basically just ramming ships close enough together so you could get on board and cut everyone down with a sword. Guns bring naval combat alive. Without cannons, ships serve only as a means of transportation. And lastly are all guns. This is just modern day combat all the way to sci-fi. Yes, I'm including things like lightsabers and all those crazy weapons that come along with sci-fi. When your story has modern guns, the use of sword is a gimmick. The only reason swords are still used in Star Wars is because Jedi have the Force. And yes, they would be far more effective if they used firearms, but their moral code as protectors, not soldiers, prevents them from doing that. Yes, swords and bows are cool, but in this genre, it's a very fine line between coolness and just utter stupidness. Modern and sci-fi weapons are more about engineering, intelligence, and technology. This genre highlights how easily and quickly you can take a life. No more honor or strength, a simple mistake of pulling a trigger will determine whether someone lives or dies. The lines of morality get blurry. Technology allows people to kill instantly, at any distance and any place. The guilt and remorse are so far removed from modern day combat it has become more like a video game. But I will admit humans' clever ways of creating immense explosions from nukes to black hole bombs does make for some spectacular scenes in sci-fi movies. And after saying that, the last key feature is the more advanced your world's weapons are, the less powerful magic becomes. A dragon against a bowman seems like an impassable mountain to overcome, but when your country has ballistic missiles, dragons become more of a nuisance rather than a threat. As a weapons artist myself, I'm conflicted about modern weapons. I keep this old R1 rifle bullet at my desk. I really like firearms, they are technically very impressive. However, it's a surreal thing to think this small piece of copper and lead could end it all. I wouldn't see it, I wouldn't feel it, and I wouldn't hear it. One lucky shot and it's lights out for me. Yeah, and that's my overview. The rest of the points are for weapons regardless of what time period your story takes place in. Starting with lore. Everyone loves a weapon with a backstory, myself included. But I think unless it's crucial to your story, you're best leaving it out. Weapons with lore in most cases come across cheesy and pointless. Let's take Star Wars, the scene where Rey goes, "This weapon has done horrible things. Yeah, you're currently wielding the Youngling Slayer 5000. Don't also have an old man read a 2-page essay on the hero's weapon. No more planet-destroying, world-altering weapons that a stupid 14-year-old happens to stumble across. Don't be like that. Adding history to a weapon is best done in small, cleverly hidden details that for those who want to know more, know where to look. Weapons are a writer's best friend of show, don't tell. If you see someone walking around with a dagger, instantly our mind goes towards, is this person an assassin, maybe a thief? The shape and condition of the weapon is another key feature. Thinner, smaller blades are often seen as feminine, whereas axes, great swords are seen as masculine. You can flip these common tropes with an oxymoron like giving a petite character a giant battle axe. As for condition, scratches and dent can show experience and battle hardened, but they can just as easily show neglect and carelessness. As for the overall looks, personally I love an ornate weapon. These tools with intricate and beautiful designs have so much charm. If a weapon is a gift or an award, the more details, the better it shows appreciation and respect for the person you're giving it to. However, if your character is walking around with overly flashy items, then the feeling shifts more towards egotistical and vain. Someone pointed out to me that my stag logo was on all the parts of the dagger. What can I say? I really like how stags, elks and deers look, but nonetheless it did make me think of the arcane
because
scene.
You signed your notes. Every page, I might add. A little egotistical, don't you think?
Ornate weapons also have practical drawbacks. Weapons, but blades specifically, need to be cleaned often. Blood, dirt, sand are common occurrences for a weapon. Now that beautiful gold flower in the hilt isn't looking like such a great idea. For designing a weapon, think of what that weapon will be used for. Remember, the problem always comes before the solution. Let's say my nation's army desperately needs weapons. Okay, so first off, simple mass-produced design. Cost and time are going to affect how the weapon will look. Now, who are their main adversaries? If they're fighting people on horseback, pikes and spears are going to be my first choice. Often when thinking about your character's main weapon, the choices seem infinite, but as soon as you lay out some problems they'll encounter, the weapon choice becomes much clearer. Remember, you're a writer, you want to find the best weapon, almost like a key. It fits your story perfectly. You can choose whichever one you want. And lastly is reference. Even if you're only writing a weapon, being able to visually picture it is an extremely valuable tool. Whenever I'm working on guns, I normally just fill an entire pure reference file with pictures that have inspired me or pictures that are currently representing materials and textures I want to replicate. For my fellow artists out there, this blade is made in Blender and textures are edited in Krita. All of the textures in the piece are hand painted except for the wood that I use the stock photo for. When making textures, I first try to use stock photo websites, but often they just don't have what I want. I've found taking photos myself to be much more useful. I originally was going to make the blade Damascus steel, but when I used wave nodes or stock photos, it just looked a little bit fake. So instead I took a picture of a coffee table, then desaturated it, and with relative ease I got this nice steel texture. Using pre-made PBR textures is great for large-scale scenes. It saves time, but if you're after a truly unique look, making your own textures from scratch is the best approach. Now, yes, I am completely aware that taking photos is a privilege. It comes down to luck if you happen to have pretty textures in your area. However, when you start making your own textures, you quickly become more aware of all the textures out there. Just the average kitchen in a house will have a plethora of textures. For the imperfections in the blade, I just used a simple bump map. Displacement uses way more resources for marginal improvements. It's just not worth it for me. Not really much to say with creating this piece. I mean, swords, the geometry is normally very simple, so the heavy lifting often comes down to texturing. The blade is normally one single piece, so you can spend so much more time on the hilt and the handle. And lastly, before I end it, I just wanted to say thank you for the feedback I got on the last video. I was pleasantly surprised to hear a few of you liked my currency video, as it's also one of my favorites. Looking back at it, I wish I presented the coins a little bit better, so I remade this image to amend that.